All right, mugs in hand,
Bugs in
fire in our
hand.
bellies and our hearts. Let's go. We'll call
Yes.
this episode, I did this wrong last time. We'll call this episode 27 of the Athletic Philosopher podcast. I am your host, Jordan Goldstein, former university professor, always a fake doctor, used to teach sport history, sport philosophy, sport sociology. Now we do fitness coaching, life coaching, blended in beautiful harmony, endurance training coach, travel prof, all the above, none of the above, most likely in the middle of it all. I am so pumped. It is the best day ever on this podcast because I am welcoming my brother, my homie, savage man with the most beautiful heart in the world, wise beyond his years in the world of training and in life, Mr. Michael Donatelli. Say hello to the beautiful people, sir.
What is up, friends? What is up, Mr. Goldstein, my life professor? It is so good to be chatting with you. Thank you for having me on. And I am just so excited. I'm 3 coffees deep. We've got a whole other pot brewing, and I'm excited to talk about whatever the heck we're going to talk about.
Well, it's going to be something about sports. It's going to be something about
Yeah.
fun. It's going to be something about creativity. And it's going to be something about philosophy. And I love
Love
that
it.
you call me your life professor. That is one of the greatest monikers that I could ever get. I earned all the fancy titles, but I hate them. And the ones that the ones that my homies and friends give to me, those are the ones that matter the most, right? Just like those nicknames that you got from your boys when you were playing sports growing up, right? Those are the ones that matter the most.
They really are. They really are. And I think life professor is just so fitting for you because, I always say, like, whenever I have conversations with you, Jordan, it's like I get new insight. It's like connecting with the best teachers and professors I've ever had. Yes, they pour so much knowledge into me, but they also just help me make these connections to what they're teaching or what they're learning and apply it to my own life. And those are the connections that make so many magical moments come out of that. And there's no one better that has done that in just everyday life out of the classroom than you. So I think Life Professor just summarizes one of the most amazing things about you because there's many of them.
Beautiful. I just wrote a little article about the wheel of learning, and it's sort of like this idea that the student and the teacher should be inspiring each other to learn and grow together. And it's like the best education is the infinity wheel. When do you know when the teacher's influence stops and the student's ambition starts? Like you shouldn't know, right? And I certainly feel that with you, and I gain a lot of wisdom and knowledge from you, even though you are a much younger man than I. But as I do with these podcasts, we don't really have a roadmap, but we've got a little bit of a loose aim, and I always like to ask my guests a broad question that's going to take the conversation in any direction that you choose, and then we'll just circle
Love it.
around it, and we're not going to come to some sort of a conclusion or a resolution, but hopefully we can come back to where we started with a little more understanding. And so my question for you, Mr. Donatelli, what is your philosophy of sport, physical activity, and competition that you use to enhance your own life and also pour into the people that you coach as a fitness trainer?
Man, that's the question, and it's one that gets me so excited. Just honestly thinking about, and immediately I'm just gonna go where my brain immediately goes, where my heart tells me it wants to go, and that's just this idea that I never wanted my physical fitness to limit the life experiences that I have. And that is ultimately what I have found so much joy around my fitness and sport ultimately. Like when I was a wrestler in high school, feeling like I was unstoppable, I was athletic, I was agile, I was strong, I was conditioned, and that was what was so cool about being a wrestler. And my background was that I felt like it suited me to do really anything in life, even from the small things of like, you know, oh, hey, I can't eat right now because I have to cut weight to make a weight class. That's no problem. I can still go and enjoy, my Thanksgiving. I mean, for 5 years in a row, I didn't eat Thanksgiving dinner. So that didn't necessarily, change the fact that, hey, I was still with my family, enjoying myself, and finding other meaning in that holiday. So I think ultimately it comes down to everything that I, you know, use from athletics pours directly back into my life and the experiences that I want to have. And I never just wanted my aim to change from this fact that, hey, sport is a tool that allows me to live my life how I want to live it, but I never want sport to become my entire life, my entire identity, because I have actually let that drift into that kind of realm, and it's not as enjoyable as I thought it would be, and it takes more than it ends up giving. So to me, my philosophy around fitness, sport, how I preach with how I help my clients achieve their goals is ultimately, hey, let's make sure that your physical ability, your physical body is never the thing that limits the life experiences that you can have.
Mm. It's like physical activity or fitness or sport is a means unto itself to move towards the end of living what? Virtuously, living gracefully, living explosively, living dynamically, living life, right? Just feeling alive. And when we talk about feeling alive, like if I'm not moving the body, what is that? That's atrophy. That's like a decay. That's like almost like a death inside the body, even if I'm breathing, even if I'm walking around, even if I'm eating. There's no what? Vibrancy in a
Mm.
life that's maybe aimed away from that overall vision of what? It's not even like enjoyment, but we'll say something like fulfillment. Yeah.
Yes, 100%. You know, the most recent example I remember having this and this kind of philosophy coming to full fruition in my life was the first time I ever went to the Grand Canyon, because I read the statistic about the Grand Canyon where it's something like it gets, millions of visitors, hundreds of thousands of visitors, whatever, and only 1% of the people ever go beneath the rim. And it's this idea, like I remember I hiked down to the Grand Canyon. It was the most magical experience, absolutely beautiful. It's one of the coolest hikes I've ever been on. And I remember just thinking as I'm walking through this, and it's a hard hike. I mean, you're going down 4,000 feet of elevation descent and then turning around and coming back. And it's one of those hikes that you can't do unless you are of able body. And then when I did the hike and I thought about the statistic, I'm like, there is so many people, maybe they don't have the physical capability, or they don't have the belief in themselves, or they don't have they haven't pushed themselves in this way that they don't even have the desire to go see what that is. And it was like a microcosm of what else then is limiting their experiences in their life? Like, what are they not doing because they don't have the belief in themselves through doing hard physical challenges, or their body isn't able to do the challenge? Whatever their limit or factor is, their physical fitness is limiting their experiences. And for something as beautiful as going and just experiencing nature in its most raw element was like this come together moment of, oh my gosh, yeah, like I'm so grateful that I can do this. I'm not even second guessing my ability to do it.
I love that example. Pardon me. I love that example, and I think that paints a beautiful picture in the mind's eye of whoever is listening to this of what exactly you're trying to aim us towards when it comes to the utility of physical fitness. And I'm trying to think of everybody in terms of like their breadth of experience. I'm thinking about the person who doesn't move at all, and I'm thinking about like the top of the chain, like the guy who's super super serious about his fitness. You know, maybe your classic gym bro or your classic like runner's runner. 6 days a week, everything is dialed in with particular structure and discipline. And I really love your philosophy because it touches every single person along the chain, no matter where they are in their particular journey, no matter where their context or history is when it comes to physical activity. And without maybe targeting like one end or the other, I wonder if you can help us make sense of this problem most people have with physical activity, which is it's hard, it's a struggle, it's a grind. Therefore, I've got to make it hard, a punishment. Like, how do we square discipline with fun? Is my question to
Mm,
you, right? Because you just mentioned this Grand Canyon hike. You know, it's the most beautiful, one of the most fun experiences I've ever had, but I had to show up to the start line in a particular shape, and that means discipline. That means doing things like you don't want to do when you have to do them. So for all of us who are trying to figure out this, mix of fun, imagination, and creativity, which clearly that is like maybe the overall aim and orientation of where
mm,
you want us, and certainly where I think we should be going when it comes to our fitness journeys. But
yes.
how do we tie that in with the necessary discipline in order to
Mm.
stay on task, in order to structure ourselves, and to sort of live by a process that a lot of days we're just not going to want to go through with.
Mm. Yeah. That's the money question, and how I approach it is you first got to get away from like the cookie cutter plans. I think that's the number one mistake people make, and it's the reason that people end up hating fitness, or they're able to tough it out for a little bit, but they just never have that deeper connection. And it's because, like, you go through these suburban neighborhoods these days, right? And you can go into a cul-de-sac and you see the same house. And you look at it and you're like, okay, that's cool, but like, it doesn't really make me feel anything, right? Versus you go into like, suburb of like a maybe north side neighborhood of Chicago, and you have all of this beautiful different architecture on the street. Or where I live in Indianapolis, there's just like a beautiful subdivision that's right here downtown, and every house is different, and they all have structure, but then they choose to fill that structure with something that is unique to each one of them. And so, if you view it in this sense of like a house, it's not just doing what everyone else is doing. It's saying, hey, I know I got to build a house, but I can fill it with what I want. I can design it how I want. I can choose the color. I can choose all of these different factors that people just don't necessarily think that they can make a difference with. If you build it to your own circumstances, your own preferences, all of a sudden you have structure, which is, as we know as coaches, is vital for any sort of progress to happen. But that structure and what we're actually doing is completely different based on the individual needs, wants, desires. And I think that's how you start having more fun with it, is you say, hey, where is my desire? Where is the thing in fitness that gets me excited? You're a huge trail runner, right? Like, I was someone that really came from a wrestling background, so I like explosive constant movement. So I really like hit circuits. I like that kind of dynamic movement. I'm not someone that really got a huge kick out of doing 3 sets of 8 to 10 in the gym. Honestly, like, even when I was in my peak lifting phases, my coach Zach Hummel, he was very tailored to the individual and who I was and what I enjoyed, and he made my workouts more intense and more constant movement, more volume. And so I was progressing within the structure I needed to see where I wanted to go, but the specifics were completely up to me and my own personal preferences. And I think too many people just buy the basic plan. They get on what everyone is telling them, what the studies are saying, and for some, they find joy in the simplicity of that. But for a lot of people, it's just not the thing that's gonna get them excited to go and do it. And then they don't have that bridge of what's my fitness to my overall lifestyle. And when you don't have that bridge, it becomes very difficult to always feel tied to it.
That's so good. That idea of aim with the heart first and make it um, almost like preferential, or design it like custom fit to yourself
Yeah.
and to your life. And Zach's also my coach as well. Maybe not in the fitness world, but he certainly is a leader. And one of the things that he has taught me that I think I always and intuitively understood, but you have to make the implicit explicit to make it really real and actionable in your life, was this idea of reverse engineering, right?
Mm,
So most people start at square one and then they go out without the aim or the proper, let's say, like magnet that draws them powerfully towards it, right? But if you simply think about like what's the life that I desire? What are the things that I want to do? Like how do I want to live? And you put that in your mind first in a fitness context, but also in sort of like an overall life context, then you work backwards. Then you work
Mhm.
backwards on how do I accomplish that? What's my context? How much time do I have in the week? What facilities and locations and spaces are available to me to make that happen? Is this a realistic aim? And if
Mhm.
it's not, how can I recalibrate it to something that more suits and fits me? And I will give you my example here so that we can get a sense of how the people listening to this can start to individually craft their own, we'll call it like the magnet out there.
Mhm.
I have a meta goal in life, which encompasses almost like everything. And it's a fitness goal, and it sounds trite and silly, but then I'll explain why it's not. My meta goal in life is to walk 18 holes in golf
Mhm.
with my grandchildren and play
There you
around
go.
with them. I want to do that one time in my life. Like if
Yep.
I can do that in my life, everything else is a success. And people out there listening might think, well, that's kind of silly. It's just an 18 hole round of golf. Like why is that such a powerful draw? Okay, here's what needs to happen in order for that to materialize. One, I've got to be old. I actually have to live that long, okay? I have to be alive for my grandchildren to be old enough to walk an 18-hole golf course on their own, which means they've got to be what, like 9, 10 at the youngest, probably like teenager age, which, I'm turning 39 in a month. My oldest kid is turning 7. So do the math. How old do I have to be? Probably like 80, probably
Yeah.
like 85. Okay, but now when I'm 80 and 85, what do I have to be able to do? Play 18 holes of golf while walking. I got to
Yeah.
be fit. I don't have to be like the most jacked individual, but I got to have a good heart. I got to have flexibility, dexterity, proportional body strength. Okay, so
Yeah.
the physical aim is coming together. What else do I have to have? I have to have enough money to make it happen, right? I got
Yeah.
to be able to have my golf clubs, be able to get to a golf course. I don't need the most money in the world, but I have to have like a sense of financial security
Mhm.
played out. What else do I also have to have? Good family relationships. I have to have children who love me, right? That are healthy and successful, that go on to have successful marriages for themselves where they're having kids, and then they want to come and visit me, do the things that I'm doing, follow kind of like the wise patriarch of the family type of vibe. And then the grandkids have to love granddad so much that they want to go out and spend time with granddad doing the thing that he's doing, which is playing golf, right? And that's like a small slice. You could continue to unpack that meta goal for all of the things that have to go right in my life from right now in order for me to reach that goal, right? And it's a beautiful goal because it's encompassing all of the things my body, my mind, and my spirit like crave for like the deepest fulfillments, the deepest meaning in my life, right? I'm not just in the gym 3 times a week to get my 180 minutes of moderate to vigorous exercise so that I can max you like cool,
Mhm.
man. Like cool, I can be alive without living. I can be alive without living as we were talking about
Ooh.
earlier, right?
Yes.
So that is
I'm
like
sure.
that is the way I think you're I mean, I know that's what you're doing, but this is, I think, a very visceral and vivid experience of how I actually crafted this ideal of where do I want to aim fitness? I want to aim it towards something like that. And as you say, I love trail running, right? And I love to continue to trail run, but I recognize the finitude of the body,
Mhm.
and I want to go for as long as I can in the trail running world, but there will be a time where I won't be able to do it like I do it, and I won't be able to get the same juice from the squeeze. Um, and if I want to live the most like meaningful and beautiful and romantic life possible, which is certainly a part of my philosophy, it's that's the magnet for me. Like
Yeah.
that's the magnet for me. And I know that's what you effectively guide your clients and certainly yourself to do in the fitness world.
Yeah, that is all incredible, and it's so well put. And I love the tangible example of the magnet and thinking about the big picture. And it's honestly something that really through self reflection like was a big core theme of me going into this year, because what you said about like how what we're talking about applies to not just people that are at like the base of like need to build up their fitness, but also like I'm someone that has been in fitness, has done a lot with athletics, is at the topper end. And I had to check myself this year because as I was laying out some of my goals, I it was the first time in my life, like I'm going to be 25 in July. I know, not like crazy old or whatever, but it's the first time I've heard my age and I thought to myself, "Oh my god, I'm halfway through my 20s. Time is flying," right? And so it kind of prompted this really self-reflection, and I had looked at my goals for 2025, and I'm like, okay, Michael, you've got like 7 fitness goals here. And fitness is the thing that I default to, honestly. It's the one thing in my life that like I have no problem going all in. Like I have no problem working out 3 times a day. That's easy for me, honestly. Like that is I'd love to do it, right? But at the same time, when I think about where I want to go, what I want to do, the bigger picture, I look at it, I'm like, well, right now, your life vision has fitness being maybe 30%, 40, maybe 40%, but the way you're structuring your life, it's at 80%. It's like, okay, well, you want to have a family. All right. So you need to prioritize social interaction more, in a way that's not just through fitness, or not through just business, but is, hey, disconnect, going out, being with friends, meeting new people, finding, a girlfriend, things like that. You got to prioritize that. It's like, okay, well, also, you need to get your business in a place that allows you to support a family. It's one thing supporting me living in a single bedroom apartment in Indianapolis with my dog. But if I want to have a full family and be able to, show up in a way that I'm blessed where I can make my own schedule, I don't have to have a 9 to 5, then we need to get the business made in a spot that it can handle that. And so it was like this big revelation of where it was like, no, you actually need to pull back on fitness stuff. You need to not go as hard. And so it was like this big moment of like you said, thinking about the bigger picture and then making sure that fitness is tying you to that. So like I will always have fitness be a part of me, but my whole theme for fitness this year is doing more with less. See what you can do when you cap how much you actually push. So it's like, hey, if you're only giving yourself 7 to 10 hours of training a week versus when you're at 15 to 20 hours, you're going to have to make those sessions count a little bit more. You're going to have to be a little bit more creative with what you're doing. Maybe it is more cross training. Maybe it's not just, hey, just go for an easy 5 mile run because it feels good. It's like, hey, maybe we need to think about, okay, how can we incorporate running with your strength, doing different things. And it's been a fun experiment for me because it's been a new challenge. Because again, like I still want to push in fitness, and I will always have a piece of me that needs to compete, and I don't think that's ever going to go away, and I don't want it to go away. But it's yeah, if you want to be honest with yourself and where your life's going, you got to make sure that you're some of the piece of the pie that you've allotted towards fitness. It needs to be rearranged and put more time and energy into the other things that you want to see success in.
Guys turning 25 and spouting wisdom like a 75-year-old sage on the top of the mountain where the pilgrims have to make like a 4-day journey just to get up to receive like the blessings, man. I couldn't have said it any better myself. And there's a million different tangents that we could spin off just from that. But I've promised myself, and I do have some time commitments that are coming up.
Mm-hmm.
I really, we'll do this again. That's no problem. Like we don't need to come to a
Anytime.
resolution, but that was so good, dude. And for people like out there, one thing I want to highlight before I move to sort of the way I want to end off this conversation, the importance of boundaries that that you think are restrictions, but are actually freeing you up to be a little bit more spontaneous, creative, and improvisational. Like when I just have space, there's way more room for chaos to emerge, right? So
Mm,
if I'm training 15 hours a week or 20 hours a week, yeah, loosey goosey. But once I start to dial in priorities and I'm weighing my, responsibilities and the other things that I value in my life against training or against any of the things that we would just love to do, as you mentioned, like training is easy for you. This is one of the reasons why you're such a great trainer, is because you recognize, what's easy for me doesn't come easy for other people. But what I can do is show them how to make it easier for them. The limits and the right boundaries create the possibility for more freedom, optimal freedom, right? Where the mind is sort of tricking you, saying, like, oh, the hard thing is to do more of the hard thing that's really easy for me. And it's like, no, the hard thing is to properly prioritize yourself so that you get everything that you desire, as opposed to tricking yourself into thinking, oh, it's just this, oh, it's just that. And I've been doing that myself, especially around business. And I'm like the old prof, the crudgy historian, and the big wing chair. I literally have the wool jacket with the suede elbow patches on it. Never got to wear it as a prof, but that's me. And it's like,
yes.
a limit that I put on myself is like, oh, I'll never be good at business. I'll never be a businessman.
Mm,
And it's just like, cope for not trying, and allowing me to just do the easy things for me without actually growing and stretching myself and getting all the things that I desire, right? So you just
yeah.
straight fire, straight wisdom from the man himself. But I know another big part of your athletic philosophy is competition,
Mhm.
pushing yourself, getting out into the arena, testing yourself against opponents, yourself, the clock, whatever it is. So, where does competition fit into your philosophy? And again, if we're trying to think about the person who they don't exercise but they want to versus the person at the top and everybody in between, where should we place competition, or how do
Mm.
we properly orient that within our own, journeys towards the magnet, and how do you
Yes.
see competition working for you?
Man, I love it. So competition is huge, and I think it has a place in everyone's life. And it's something that how I view it in the grand picture is ultimately it's fun to be in the zoomed out view and thinking about the overall vision, where you want to go, playing, golf with your grandchildren. It's awesome. But the question is, on a random Wednesday morning when it's 4 a.m. and you only have a 1 hour window to go get your workout in, and your alarm goes off, is the thought of you living a long, healthy life going to get you out of bed in that moment? It's like as much as we want to think it does. How great would that be if we can just tie that deeper, like that movie moment of where you're just like Rocky's envisioning Drago, like you're like that's the moment, right? It's like ultimately, you're gonna hit snooze 100% of the time. You're like, fuck the grandkids, man. I'm going to bed. And you're like, what competition does is it creates urgency in our life that then allows us to show up how we want to show up. And it forces us to ultimately have integrity for the person we want to be and say, hey, I made this commitment to myself that I'm going to go and give my all at this race. And if I don't show up during the training, then that's not going to be possible, right? I'm making a commitment the same way you make a commitment to your family, the same way you make a commitment to your job. All of a sudden, a competition is a commitment to yourself and your own well-being in the micro, in the 3 to 6 months. That is what gets you out, and that's what allows you to build. And then the last thing I'll say on that is it also is just so much freaking fun. Like there is no better vibes than going to a race, meeting people, being with your friends, making new friends, doing something. Like you go to these races and you realize no one is. Oh, there's sometimes there are pros there and it's cool to rub elbows with them, but most of the time it's just average people doing an above average thing, the ordinary doing the extraordinary. And so when you can put yourself in that environment, it is just unlike anything else. And the last thing I'll add before I let you talk about, whatever you're talking about off of this is just if it's your first competition and you're unsure about it, you're hesitant, go in with the completion mentality. Don't think you have to, just because you enter a competition does not mean you need to compete, does not mean you need to put on this incredible performance. There's so much other good that comes from doing a competition, that from putting the date on the calendar, for training for it, for showing up, giving your best, that you don't need the external, I need to make this time. I need to do this performance. Go in, let the competition give you whatever it's going to give you. And I guarantee you, you'll walk away excited to do it again with an amazing experience. And you'll get so much out of it, even if you don't have some sort of big goal. The big goals will come because naturally, the more you do it, you're going to want that next layer, but don't rush into it.
Beautiful. The thing that pops into my mind is the tag that we use on the team, right? It's like the race is the celebration. So like enjoy it. It's not this punishment. It's not this place to show how hard you go. In a sense of like, oh, I'm just gonna grind and be miserable. And like certainly there are races where that just ends up happening, like not everything is sunshine and rainbows in this life, even if we want it to be. And those become great learning lessons. But the idea that I like to bring to our team and certainly to the people that I guide and steer towards a couple of competitions when they are appropriately ready for them. You need the finish line in order to get you to the starting line, right? You need the finish line in order to get you to the starting line. And then when you cross the finish line, you realize that the finish line doesn't matter. And it really was all about the transformation that you took in order to change yourself into the person you want to become, who shows up at the starting line with love in their heart, with gratitude on their lips, with appreciation in their feet. We're just going to say it's a running race, right? And then you go. And then you go, and then you just
Just
you
go.
just you just have fun. And I know that you and we had some performance goals last year that both of us kind of fell short on, and those sting, man. Like I wanted to get 100 miles in the backyard, and I only got 87 and a half. You wanted to hit sub 3 marathon, and you bonked your way to like a 3:20 marathon like a
Yep.
savage. Right? Like that's harsh. That's the truth. And we have to face those results, but we're not using those as a definition on who we are, right? Because we were using the starting line as the real litmus test. Like, get me to the start line, get me ready to go, get me in the right space, and then we'll use like the honest and truthful results of the competition to figure out where was I good? Where do I need to improve? How can I get back to the starting line next time as an improved version of myself so that I can hit the performance goals? Because we want to hit the performance goals, but ultimately, not doing the sub 3 marathon or not hitting the 100 miles in the backyard, that's not the magnet of my life, right? That's
Nope.
not the magnet of my life. That's a guidepost. That's a sign to say, hey, maybe you need to back up 5 steps so you can go back on the right path to hit the things that you need to hit or want to hit, right? And I really love your advice to people who are maybe hesitant about competition. And that's not somebody who like even like has never competed in sports. You're talking to me like 2 years ago, dude. I was somebody who
Mhm.
was hyper competitive. I played high level elite soccer, and I was the person like I hated to lose. Like I hated to lose. I was the guy that like missed the final penalty kick like to lose out on the big like city championships, right? And it like what did I do? I just went and I sobbed for 10 minutes in front of my teammates because it was like I let them all down, and I was the one that dropped the ball or didn't kick the ball past my best friend, the goalie, on the other side. And then I had to go to school the next day and like eat all the crap from them, right? Like I know what it's like. And I actually shied away from competition because it was so painful and it's so truthful. But, you know, we're adults. We need to use these things as the tools that they are in order to enhance our lives, to bring that kind of like that beauty and that joy and one of the words we used earlier, fulfillment back into our lives, right? And if we are training, if we are competing, and if we are utilizing sport as this sort of like spiritual tool to enhance the purpose and meaning of our lives, yeah, competition is a necessity, and we have to be doing it in a bunch of different ways. And maybe that's a good place to stop. And next pod is a 3 hour pod between you and I. Like
I'm
that's
so
for
in.
sure.
I'm so in.
The amount of coffee that will be drank will be legendary, for
We'll,
sure.
we'll be
When we
twitching
make,
by the end.
yeah, for sure. Like
Maybe next one.
we'll be zooming.
Maybe next one we just take. I got some mobile mics, and we just hit the trails and hit a trail run and do a your first trail run podcast in movement.
Down, pod in motion. Hey, like my one of my big philosophical heroes, Aristotle, right? I forget the word. I always forget the word, but he's known as the walking philosopher. And the students of Aristotle weren't known as like the disciples of Aristotle. They were just known as the ones who walked, right?
Yeah.
So it's like you're so on the money with that.
I
We are
mean,
1,000% going to do it, and maybe we'll just be hitting a couple coffee shops along the
oh,
way,
definitely.
so we can
Maybe
gas
espresso
up.
shots. I'm
Let's
in.
go.
Sounds like a great way
Um,
to spend an afternoon or morning.
Holy moly, team! This is so much fun, and what I want to just leave everybody with is you see how much joy talking about these things bring us. Well, that's because we go and we do it all the time, right? And we slog through the sessions that we don't want to, and we don't hit the snooze button, and we discipline ourselves so that we can enjoy the moments where our motivation, our skill, our talent, the company, the environment, they all meet up into like those perfect beautiful moments. Like if you're a sports fan out there and you're in the habit of watching every single regular season game, you know exactly what I'm talking about right now. Because whatever, I'm thinking of hockey. There's 82 regular season games. Three of those might actually be worth watching in terms of like the game is really close, it's dramatic, there's great passion and emotion and energy in the game, and then there's 79 duds. Okay, well, we got to all go through the 79 duds if we want to get to like the three that really matter, right? So
Yep.
keep that idea of joy, fun, passion, creativity in mind, but tie it to discipline, structure, and determination in order to get it through. And every day can be the best day ever. Your tagline, bro, right from your
Yes,
heart.
it can.
Let's go.
Yes, it
Let's
can.
go.
What a
Let's
day.
go. Man, what a great conversation. We will be doing this again. Thank you so much, Mike Donatelli. I will put
Thanks for having me,
down
bro.
links to your social in the show notes. Please go follow the man. And there's like literally two people who I would ever tell people to go and hire as a fitness coach, and this guy is one of them. So if you need a fitness coach,
Thanks, brother.
this is your guy. This
Thanks,
is
brother.
your guy. Athletic philosopher approved. Thank you so much, Mike Donatelli. We will see you all in the next one. Peace and love.
Peace.